Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. Mitchell Renz here from Chat Sports doing an at-home video because we got some breaking news here. The Las Vegas Raiders are signing foreigner cornerback from the Seattle Seahawks, Sidney Jones. Now, we've talked about Sidney Jones a few times here on the show. I talked about him as early as on Thursday because once I found out that he cleared waivers and the Raiders were 6 at the time of the waivers, I was hoping that they were going to go out and they were going to pick up Jones because he's a player to me that could have helped out the Raiders. He's a player that could have helped you out tonight up against a team that you should have never lost to in the Jacksonville Jaguars. So what I want you to do right now is go down in the comments section and give me a reaction to the news of the Raiders going out and signing Sidney Jones. Because to me, here's my response to that. It's a day too late. It's 2 days too late. It's too late. Your team right now is 2-6. Your head coach just blew another 17-point lead. It's too late. I like Jones. He's going to be able to help you out. There's no doubt about it. When you think about how bad Anthony Averett has played since returning from the IR, I don't know if I'm looking at Anthony Averett or if I'm looking at Damon Arnett, because both of those guys, from what it seems like right now, are trash. Maybe Arnett at least has an opportunity to be a rapper still. So here's the issue. The Raiders were a day too late. And I know that we're not going to have the usual setup here. Hell, Alex and I, we're right now decorating for Christmas. Chuck's a little upset because I went back on the mic. But my job here is to keep you guys up to date and somewhat entertained here around the Las Vegas Raiders. I know you guys are a passionate fan base, and I am too. I'm still upset after tonight's loss. So hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications if you bleed silver and black. That way I can do my best to make sure that you're up to date and have a good time as well. Now, on live days, Sundays, when the Raiders play, Jeremy Chuggs and I, we do watch parties. I want you to know, we had a good time on those live shows, and I'm not going to lie, kind of wild right now. But I appreciate people who come across and watch these videos. So what you're going to hear now is you're going to get some stats around Sidney Jones. And again, this is a player, if you want even more in-depth look at his PFF grades, at his overall stats as a player, go back, watch the video that I did on Thursday because I did a more graphic breakdown, if you will. So this season, he had only 3 tackles, but the biggest reason why the Seahawks didn't want to use Sidney Jones anymore after last offseason, they gave him $3.6 million. So you signed him in the offseason at $3.6 million. Like, they anticipated that he was going to be a player that was going to be able to help them out, especially because think about Seattle. They were a team after they traded away Russell Wilson. I think they honestly thought to themselves, like, there's no chance we're going to be 6-3. We're going to try to go a cheaper route. So go out, get a good player in Sidney Jones at $3.6 million. All right, next step to that conversation is the fact that Jones was only $3.6 million when Seattle then had a young guy like Tariq Woolen be able to step up and really elevate his game. There was nothing really else for Jones to do. So then he clears waivers, and if the Raiders wanted to get him, I believe you had to then take on his contract. Well, I know you have to take on his contract, but at $3.6 million. Like, there's no NFL team that knows that a player is going to be released and then still try to take on a contract of $3.6 million. So he cleared waivers. Nobody else wanted them, and now he ends up on our roster. In terms of what type of player you're going to get out of Jones, I do think Raider fans are going to like him. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really know if you can get much worse from a schematic standpoint, from just being terrible standpoint, than what Averett has given you so far this year. And when you look at Jones's overall numbers from 2022 in terms of PFF grades, not a big sample size. I figured I'd go through some PFF grades here. A 58.3 overall, a run defense grade of 67.6, pass rush at 63.0, coverage grade of 55.0. Obviously, if you're a corner, I'm going to look for a higher coverage grade. Last season, 70.2 overall grade, a 67.8 run defense grade, a 69.2 coverage grade. I know that Jones can help you out. I really mean that. He's a athletic player, 6 foot. He's probably about $185 right now if I had to take a guess in terms of weight. I know he's usually fluctuating between like 175, 185, but Jones, he can be a dude who can step in right away and help you out. If you know for a fact that maybe it just seems like Anthony Averett's not going to be that guy, and it does kind of seem that way, I will take a glass half full approach here and say, you know what? Sam Webb showed some good signs tonight. I kind of wish the Raiders actually would have stuck with Webb a little bit more than what they did. We'll see what happens with Nikel Roby-Coleman. But the signing of Sidney Jones is a little bit late. If this signing would have happened after a win, we'd be sitting here having a much different conversation. But it's 2-6. I'm not 100% sure what the Raiders are really trying to do here at this point, because, I mean, let's face it, I hate being that Debbie Downer, but you can't be very confident about what this team has put out for what it's put on the field, and it is frustrating. I think every Raider fan deserves to be frustrated. I know I tweeted out, heck, if you guys want to give me a follow on Instagram, you want to give me a follow on Twitter, I'm at Mitchell Renz 365. But fan bases deserve to be angry. When you think about the amount of time, the amount of money spent, not just time, you personal, family time. Like, I can speak for every single Raider fan here. I mean, you take a lot of family time away to try to watch a Raiders football team, to watch the Raiders sport, to go to work, like, do your thing. I do think Raider fans deserve to be angry about the product on the field. And then when you listen to a guy like Davante Adams talk about the coaching, you can say what you want. I'm gonna say what Davante meant. Davante straight up was like, without being straight up, hey, we're a good football team, and the coaching's pretty freaking terrible, and that's why we're in the current situation. Derek Carr, during his press conference, flat out said, like, I wish I could tell y'all how I'm feeling. And then for whatever reason, they cut his press interview short. Why? Because they knew he might have said something? Like, I said it on my live show, and I don't know how many people are going to hear it. There's a 0% chance I ever think Al Davis would have ever stood for a head coach blowing 3 17-point leads when your franchise has been around from 1960 to 2021 and they have only 5 in that entire span. Like, Mark, I get, is Al's son, and it's his rightful, whatever, to have the Raiders. But I also think Mark has to sometimes, like, look himself in the mirror and have some respect for Pops and just say, maybe this isn't for me. And that's totally okay. But this fan base deserves so much better. And for Mark being at the very, very top here, you can be a man and say, you know what? I hired the wrong guy in Josh McDaniels. That's on me. And you can fix that by firing him right now and giving your fan base something to hope for. Nobody wanted McDaniels because, this might surprise you, Raider fans actually do their homework. They know. And we knew that this was never going to work out. So you can spend all the money that you're doing X, Y, and Z, but let's face it, the Raiders are never going to win when your head coach has no spine. Because when you have no spine, that circulates down to the rest of your team. Like, all I'm saying is this, Mark. Raider fans care, man. Raider fans care a lot, and you need to fire Josh McDaniels. Because until you do that, you are never going to win anything. You're not. Now, the reason why we're breaking down today's show is, again, the Las Vegas Raiders. They went out and they signed cornerback Sidney Jones. He's bounced around the NFL. I thought he was going to be able to find a nice little home there in Seattle. Unfortunately for him, that's not going to be the case. He now has been signed to the Raiders pending his physical, so it does sound like if he's going to be able to play, it's going to be hopefully this week. The fact that now you have him, it is going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with Averett. I'm going to anticipate it's going to be Rock Ya-Sin and Sidney Jones to me then as your next best corner outside of Rock. We'll see what happens when Hobbs ends up coming back. Sam Webb deserves more playing time. The guy who should be shaking in his boots here a little bit should be Averett. Jayon Brown was a healthy scratch today. I get that this Raiders team has shown that they're going to go with their guy. It's kind of like the mantra that this team set up. Even if it doesn't work, doesn't matter because McDaniels has got too big of a head to admit that he's wrong. But they're usually going to take the guys that they wanted, right? So what you have now is a guy who they wanted, Anthony Averett. And if he gets subbed out a little bit for Sam Webb, that doesn't surprise me because they went out and they signed Jayon Brown, and he was a healthy scratch today. I can't believe that he was a healthy scratch today. I mean, that's very alarming. The fact that Jayon Brown's a healthy scratch, the fact that the Divine Diablo left today's game early with a wrist injury. Denzel Perriman looks like he battled a few injuries and just still doesn't quite seem to fit this Patrick Graham system. It wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders went out and they tried to get a linebacker. Hell, they probably should. That defense was an embarrassment tonight. I can't even wrap my mind around the inability to make corrections when I watch people's jobs, when your full-time job is to be a head coach, and you can't make any adjustments on offense or defense, and especially on the defensive side of the football. It's just, man, it's super, super aggravating. I get that you can get beat, but for you to just do the same thing over and over again, Patrick Graham, I don't know if you're trying to be Paul Gunther for Halloween, but, bro, Halloween was a few days ago. You better take that costume off because I can't handle that costume right now. All right, nation, I'm heading out. I appreciate everyone who's tuning in right now. I got to get back to some family time. I don't know if you could tell, but Chuck was really in the holiday spirit, and the whole signing of Sidney Jones has kind of put a little bit of a Debbie Downer in Chuck's day. So I love y'all. I'll see you guys probably tomorrow for an overreaction show. I'll definitely see you tomorrow for an overreaction show. It's going to be hot. It's going to be heated. There's going to be some Josh McDaniels replacement sprinkled in there as well. Much love to the nation. Raiders got Sidney Jones. If you made it this far in the video, y'all are real ones. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.